It's Hollie's Hotspurs, welcome back. Talking Tottenham every week, no better place to be sat. If it's a win, lose, draw, we'll be here for a chat. Best believe we tackle topics like Romero in the back. Young Min Son, what can go wrong when he's on form? It's a dream come true, so sit back, relax and vibe with us. Special guests every time here to discuss. Bring your passion, come along for the ride, and don't forget to subscribe, cause...
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollie's Hotspurs Live, where tonight we've sadly got another loss to talk about. I feel like it's a running theme on the channel at the moment, but to do so I am joined by two fabulous guests. First of all, Jess, it's amazing to have you back on the channel. How are you, my friend?
I'm in two minds. I'm good because it's the festive season. I've been really busy. If we're talking about how I am regarding the team that we all love, a little bit like an abusive relationship. I don't know. It's annoying because I want to be positive. I always do. I want to see what there is that we can talk about that there's good. And I've written a very short list which hopefully I can share to make us smile a little bit more. But just before we went live, we were talking about this as healthy therapy instead of, I don't know, like a classic feeling that we notoriously have that brings us together. It's a nice gathering. Thank you for having me. That's what I mean to say.
No, thank you. Like I said, I think we are going to have a little bit of a debrief tonight. I think we all kind of need it, being Spurs fans. It's kind of the form at the moment. It's how we roll. But again, George, it's great to have you on as well. How are you?
Yeah, good. I mean, look, obviously it's nice to chat to you guys. Maybe not so nice to talk about Spurs as usual, but obviously nice to chat to you, and thanks for having me back on. I think supporting this club is the most mental roller coaster ever. Like I've gone from being like frank out a couple of weeks ago to, oh my God, we're so back, we're playing well again, and to, yeah, this is not looking good, bro, kind of territory. So no, thanks for having me on. Hopefully we can sort of just dissect what's going wrong and just pray things get better going forward. But yeah, it's looking a bit bleak at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. It's the love of being a Spurs fan. It's always a roller coaster, whether that's good or bad at times. But it's great to be here with you guys. Great to be with everybody that's in the chat. Anybody that's watching this live, make sure you get your comments in. I'm sure you can follow along with the show. And if you are now rewatching this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button, all that good stuff, and go check out these two as well on the good stuff that they do. But let's jump into it. And George, I'll come to you first because it was another pathetic showing by Spurs at the minute. Let's be frank about it. Yeah, I know. I'm running out of countless kind of fingers at the moment of working out how many good ones we've had. But anyway, what was your overall thoughts, obviously, of that game losing 3-0 to Forest?
Yeah, I mean, it was frustrating, is that, like, even though there have been games that we've been poor this year, going into it, I think, look, we had away form was brilliant. We had two good games in a row. Okay, the opponent weren't great, but Forest haven't been fantastic this season either. Well, far from it, to be fair. So I went into it like really confident, thinking, okay, we're building on this like new attacking style that he's developed the last couple of games, and we're normally good away from home anyways. Hopefully that works. But as the game played out, it was just an absolute disaster. It felt similar to the Arsenal and Chelsea game, and Fulham, to be fair, where it just felt like the players just didn't really want to, battle any duels with anyone. They didn't want to win any second balls. They just felt like they were just present on the pitch, and that was about it. So to come away from that game with a 3-0 loss, and then when you actually look at the goals themselves, like the huge mistakes that the players have made, but then equally, I don't think we were set up to play well either. It's almost as if like Frank sort of resorted back to his kind of counter-attacking ways where we weren't really playing ball to feet. It was just long ball over the top. Difference is this time, Forest weren't going. They didn't have the defence as high up, so they weren't leaving as much space behind. So it just meant that we weren't creating anything. And then also down to the individuals, to be fair, I think a few had quite poor games. Like Xavi couldn't really stick many passes. When he did, Richarlison had a terrible touch. Kudus tried to take on 3 people and lose the ball. It was just total shambles from start to finish.
And I think that's the most annoying thing, because obviously I know it's a different kind of calibre of team, but in the week I felt confident going into this game just because of how well certain individuals played, and it's going to this one, and a bit like what George says, there was individuals that weren't really clicking. It was just a big mess, to be honest with you.
I really feel like the inconsistency is what's killing us. So I've been trying to think, like, obviously you can blame players, you can blame managers, but I just think like the synergy of the team just isn't there. And I don't want to get on some sort of like get the manager out train, because as we've seen over the years, it's like it's the exact same story over and over again. I do think there is a difference though in like really loving a manager and backing them regardless of what's happening. You kind of want something to fight for, and I can't help but think no one's really like fighting like I don't think anyone is quite seeing what the vision is that Thomas Frank's trying to instill. And George was just saying like it kind of looked like everyone was stood there on the pitch, and I can't help as well, I love the yellow kit so much, but I was like, they are quite literally standing there like lemons. It is honestly like I can't I just, it was so disappointing. There's a part of me that kind of always returns back to like, how do I feel? Because I play a lot of sport and I play hockey, and weirdly, some of the tactics are very similar. Like, I mean, we don't have an offside rule, but some of the ways of getting out the back and the ways of like actually trying to either attack on the counter or like try and adapt to a new style. We have a new coach. Last season, our coach left and it was kind of divisive. The first team didn't really like him. The second team really did. We clicked with him and they didn't. And what I find is that when someone instills a new formation or like, you know, way of attacking or way that we're going to get the ball forward, if you find a bit of joy in it, but you're like, right, I just need to do better in my role, you will fight to the end. And you're just, if you lose it or you make a mistake, you will be back there and you will be battling to get it right. If you don't believe in that vision, when something goes wrong, you go, look what's happened when this doesn't go right. This is what's happening to us. And I just can't help but think like our players will lose it. We can't even string like a couple of passes together, and they just don't have that fight in them to get it back, because it just feels like they don't believe in like the vision that Frank is setting for them. I think it's hard not to compare to Ange, but if anyone's listened to me talk, I really love Ange and I can't like explain it. I just think that despite him not necessarily being not necessarily being the perfect manager, I think there was a lot of things that he needed to change. Like, people aren't perfect. It's, I wanted to see that third season, and I think with Thomas Frank, I've not ever quite got on board with like any of it. I think you listen to his pressers, you listen to the talk afterwards, and I it's so flat. Like, none of that inspires me for the next game. There was something that he was talking about directly after the game, and the reporter was asking him about what he felt about Jed chucking his coat, and he was like, "Oh, thank you for alerting me to that." And I'm just like, that's such a meh answer. Like, I want you to like be annoyed that they didn't do well enough. He blamed some of it on individual players not doing well enough. And it's like, okay, we can say they weren't good enough, but you're the manager. You need to go bollock them and tell them it's not good enough. That's quite, yeah, frankly, what I think about it.
No, it's a great shout, because I did have this in my notes later on, but the fact you brought it up, I think it's a great time to kind of tackle it, because I'm kind of the same. I wanted to see the third season, but I was also like, but we finished 17th. I don't know if Ange is going to be the man to take us on. But George, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, and we can sit here now and say it, but I'm kind of on the same kind of boat as Jess, as in, you could feel that Ange had that fun. I feel like players were finally uniting. And now, although we may have won something, taken maybe 5 steps forward, I feel like we've taken 10 back in terms of how we're kind of playing in recent weeks.
Yeah, and I'm with you guys as well. I was said the exact same in the summer. I said I would keep Ange to see how it would develop and hopefully use the Europa League win as almost like, can we now make a better trajectory in the league and across other competitions and build on this winning mentality. And I think we saw that from the reaction of some of the players to his sacking. I mean, we all saw like the Basuma text and whatever that went around, and how much they loved him. And I think you can't go back to him now. There's no point sort of dwelling on it too much. But I did find that fascinating what Josh was saying there about not really buying into their vision, because you see a lot like Vicario always wants to put the blame on someone else. They're not taking responsibility for what's happening on the pitch. He's not the only one. There's a few players, but you see it more visibly with him. And it feels like a lot of the unity just isn't quite there yet, apart from maybe with the centre backs. But the rest of the team, there's just something that is lacking. And I think I would have loved to have seen that third season under Ange, because I think I'd like to have hoped he would have learned about the defensive side of things. We can't guarantee it at the end of the day, but yeah, there's just something that's not quite clicking yet, and you can tell that the players aren't really buying into it, because at the end of the day, a footballer wants to be on the ball as much as possible. They want to play that way. Someone like Xavi Simons was brought into the club to be on the ball 24/7. Or that's how he would want the game to go. Yet it's only really been those last two games against Brentford and Slavia Prague where we actually saw that happen. And then I don't know, just it doesn't really feel like. And sometimes like Kudus can be a little bit hit and miss in games where you just don't know. Some games he's fantastic, and other games you just feel like, this isn't how he wants to play. He kind of wants to just take people on and play a different way. So yeah, I think it's a shame we couldn't see it, but I think we have to like kind of move on from that. But that also doesn't mean necessarily that Frank's the right guy to take on. I just hate the fact that we've just over the last, what is it, like 5 years now, we've chopped and changed from the style of manager every single time, and I think that's not helping with us being a cohesive team or finding a rhythm, because we went from Pochettino, who was all about sprinting, running more than the opposition, playing high up the pitch, to Mourinho, that was the complete opposite. Then we went through that whole shambles of not having a manager and landing on Nuno. Conte started off brilliantly, but as Conte does second season, he just kind of throws himself under the bus. Then we went the complete opposite direction in Ange and playing this ultra-attacking football. And now we seem to go back again and bring in Frank, who's prioritising this pragmatic, maybe a bit more counter-attacking football where you're constantly changing depending on the opponent. And it's just, there's too much changes every year. So if Frank were to go, as much as I want to see more attacking football, we're going to end up just going the complete opposite way again. And then it's all just going to be a bit of a mess.
I think, but the thing is, though, is I feel like only one team can win the Premier League each year, right? And obviously we just want to contend. But I just feel like, and it's annoying that we have to keep comparing to Ange, but he is the person that was just before and they're so opposite. So I think what he stood for was like really fighting for it. It's kind of like you want something to like back, something to watch, something that's exciting. And I remember there were a couple of broadcasters that would say like, I don't even really like love Spurs, but if I saw that they were like on my worksheet for this week, I'd be absolutely buzzing because I know it's going to be a good game. I know there's going to be lots happening and it's going to be really exciting rather than disappointing. And I just think even some of the big games which we lost, like people were still fighting for it. But like, I think the ones that Thomas Frank is losing, like, you know, the Chelsea game, and then I actually didn't get to watch the Arsenal game, which I think is a good enough reason. Lucky. But stuck in a box with Gary Lineker. But I just think that those are the games that you really need to show up with a fight that is like none other. Like I watched some of the Sunderland Newcastle game yesterday, or some of the highlights, and I was just like, it made me emotional, and I'm not connected to those two teams, but you just know how much it means to both of them.
Yeah, we are at a funny time at the moment. Like we say, I think the trophy one was obviously brilliant, fantastic. But now that we've got obviously Frank in, I just don't know. I feel like I'm losing that kind of disconnect from my club again, which I thought I kind of got back under Raj towards the end. But
also, we're at 22 points this season, and it was 23 at this point last season. So anyone saying that Thomas Frank is so much better is just like we're in the same position. Basically, we're worse. We're a point worse.
The defense. Frank was brought in to sort out the defense, and we have conceded more goals at this point than we did last year, which is mind blowing. So we're not even scoring, and we're now leaking more goals. So it's just everything's just wrong. It's so wrong.
I've got a positive though. Mm-hmm. Richie is, I think, 7th in top goal scorers in the league, in the Premier League of all goal scorers.
He hasn't had an injury yet so far, so that's one positive.
Don't jinx it. No, it is true. And I think the thing that infuriates me the most, and Jess, I come to you for this one, because I feel like although towards the start of the season we were shaping up defence and I thought that things were slowly changing, we've now gone into this element of making mistakes for ourselves and adding on pressure for no reason. Obviously, the first goal that we conceded, Archie Gray calls for the ball, rightfully so, but Vicario can see what's in front of him and still plays that pass. So what would you make of that first kind of goal? And obviously, again, this kind of theme of us making our own mistakes and making things difficult for ourselves.
Okay, so the debate is whose fault is it? And my personal thought after watching on Tuesday them doing it a number of times and being this close to the forward, like just nicking it, but not because everything went right. It's only a matter of time for that to go wrong. And if I'm being completely honest, again, as someone who plays, and I play centre forward in hockey, not that it's the same sport, but just the mindset that you have, if there is a young player who is darting forward and you are like one-on-one with the goalie, that is a dream position to go and do that. And if you think you can nick it, then you will. And if you miss, then you're still putting someone like Archie under pressure. You're putting everyone under pressure. I think in the moment on the pitch, I would argue because it was Vicario's decision to pass it and he has the vision of everyone who's on the pitch, I would say it's slightly more Vicario setting up Archie for a fail. I think that it's a tactic that they've obviously said, right, this is what we're going to do. And they've done it every single game. And I just think that if I were another team and I was doing my research on the team that we're about to play, I'd say, look, if you fancy your chances, go for it. Like, you're not going to lose anything. You'd have to go with the player anyway. I just don't see why it's a good thing to do. I get that it's trying to get it out the back quick enough. But if someone like Archie's going to second guess himself and not do it after one touch, then why are you even doing it?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the thing. I think Archie doesn't really scan behind his shoulder either, George, which, again, he's going to make mistakes. He's still young. I get it. But I don't understand from Vicario. It might be because Vicario's made a lot of mistakes this season. I'm homing in on them a lot more when he does things. But I just wouldn't have played that pass personally.
Yeah, in that scenario, I don't think I would have done either. But the only thing I'm cool about in two minds is that we've been begging for a bit more central progression up the pitch in the last few games because a lot of it has just been down the flanks, long ball. So I get why we would try and work on playing through the middle. But I do agree that in that specific scenario, when if you just took a screenshot of when the ball was about to be played, there were 3 Forest players all central in the box. Whereas, okay, you couldn't go to Romero because the runner was cutting off the pass, but Van der Ven is an easy pass onto his left foot to be able to play it out. And I think in that scenario, like Jess was just saying, you're asking to be pressed, you're asking for a bit of trouble. And if that pass, or not the pass, but if the pass and the touch and everything in between isn't perfect, it's just setting yourself up for failure. And I think Vicario is, supposed to be seasoned enough that he knows when to make that pass and not. If Gray had acres of space and he was able to get onto his strong foot, fine, play. If he was able to turn and away from the player, then go for it. But it's just not. It's just there's too many times Vicario just makes a mistake in a game, and it's really frustrating because he'll pull off a worldy save at 1 minute, and then he'll go and do something else where he struggles. Maybe he gives away a goal. Maybe the pass is wrong. Maybe whatever. I mean, we saw at Fulham the absolute disaster when he was by the corner flag. So. Yeah, it's just frustrating to see someone that's supposed to be a leader in the group just constantly make mistakes all the time.
Yeah, and I think that second goal as well, Jess. I mean, the positioning for him to be like that, I mean, we could argue that potentially could have been closed down more for the cross to come in, but you should not be beaten there where he was, really.
I think a lot of people are talking about this, and I actually, when that goal went in, I was like, that is a nuts goal. That is like... There's no way he planned that to be a goal that way. I think in the after presser he said something like it was a shot cross. So it's like, giving it a go. But I think tactically, Thomas Frank, I think we have conceded so many goals from outside of the box that it's become a tactical thing that everyone sort of crams around the box and doesn't let anyone in. But it means that these people are getting the chance to have a shot like at an absolute worldie and like just have all the time to do it. And I think if that's the tactic, then Vicario should be expecting a long shot. So what is he doing? So I don't really see, again, this is where we're talking about the synergy between what's being instilled in the training field and what's being instilled like on the pitch. It doesn't feel like what's happening in training is translating to on the pitch. It's kind of saying, well, okay, if we're going to let them have those shots, then Vicario really needs to be expecting those. If he's expecting people to close them down quicker, then okay, fine. Like he's thinking there's going to be a panic pass or a cross or whatever. I don't know. It just makes me think there's no real thought. It feels like they're training stuff and going, yeah, that's good enough. And then bringing it to the match and going, oh, like scratching their heads, like, why didn't that go like we did in training, where we know exactly what's going to happen? Yeah, I don't know. I think some of these things that tactically they're just not marrying up, and that's why it makes it hard for me to believe that these players are are trusting in their own personal ability. So like Vicario making that, what I would deem Vicario's mistake, passing it to Archie in that moment, that is clearly something that they've trained as a tactic, regardless of like who they're playing against and who we have on the field. Like, again, Archie, young player, he's diving in and he's brought his player right with him. Why are they not using their brains? They're not, because they're trying to buy into this, like, I don't know, tactic that's being trained, and it's just not working. That's genuinely how I feel. I feel like if you watch when Archie loses it, instead of like keeping running the way that he was running with the player, he's like already like, and then he tries and it's too late by that point.
I think as well, I mean, I've spoken about it a lot. I know not so much this, I mean, he has done it now and again, but with Vicario, when again you pull that player with you that Archie Gray does, there's now a gap behind in that space. So then you'd hit the ball long. But it just doesn't seem to marry up with that, which again, I don't know whether it's tactics, where it's like you say, believing in their own ability. It's just, I don't know. I mean, George, for you, I know we've probably spoken about this a few times this season, but with Vicario, is he still the man that we need to have behind in between the sticks? Or are you thinking, I mean, there's rumours coming out that he potentially wants to go back home to Italy. I mean, where do you kind of stand in the whole Vicario conversation?
Before I was like last season and previous, I was more than happy to keep him because I think he was the amount of times he actually actively saved us in games. And I mean, even this year, when you look at the Monaco game, for example, we would have been absolutely battered if it weren't for him. But I think, unfortunately, where we want to be as a club, like we're considering the prices that we have to pay year in, year out to go to these matches, some of the highest in Europe, let alone this country. And the fact that the club have come out and said we're demanding Champions League football every year, that's where we want to be. A position that's so important as a goalkeeper, whereby an outfield player can make a mistake every now and again, and it usually isn't as costly because there's so many other layers to get through. There's chances that the player might be further away, this, that, and the other. If a goalkeeper makes a mistake, more often than not, that's going to lead to either a goal or a really, really good chance for the opposition. And I think you need someone in goal that is not going to cause too many issues every other week, every other game, whatever it is, because you want that solidity at the back. You want to feel like other players can make a mistake or this, that, and the other, and you're still going to be solid. If your leader, he's probably one of the oldest player in the team, you're almost last line of defense. If he's causing a problem every game, every other game, whatever it may be, that's clearly not the level that we need. And I hate being harsh because, like, I love him. I love his passion. I like what he did over the last couple of years. But I think he's going into his third season at the club now. We need to really climb the ranks back up to catch up to the people at the top four. And he's not getting any younger. And I just worry that we might need to look elsewhere for another goalkeeper.
And I think that's the thing as well, because I don't know, Jess, if Kinksky is the answer either. Like it's it's a very complicated one, isn't it?
I think that the goalkeeper's role is more than obviously the most important is saving goals. I think that Vicario was so good when things felt more together and positive. He was such a loud and vocal part of our defence and just the whole team. And then when we were getting some joy and winning more, like even online, like you could feel it, and like that togetherness, like you could feel, and it comes from the back and moves forward. With someone like Romero, especially being our captain, he's super strong, but he demands respect. Like there's a part of me that thinks like I even thought Vicario would probably leave. And then when he took the captain armband, I was like, oh, thank the Lord. But there's a part of me that just thinks that this team, like it just feels so fractured. I don't see, like, people are calling for this leadership to bring people together, but it just feels a bit forced at the minute. It feels like none of them are really enjoying it. Like Vicario was diehard Spurs, and then all of a sudden this year you hear him wanting to go back home. That's the first we've ever heard of it. He was so Spurs, like before that, all of his posts, like people like shouting venom to the rooftops, like in the comments. And he's not a bad keeper, and I don't think that our problems are his fault. I just don't. I think that he's an easy target to go for at the minute with us losing so many games and leaking goals that are silly. And I think it's kind of like George said, if a goalkeeper makes a mistake, that is like end of, like, but I just don't think our problems are his fault.
No, because our problems are up the other end of the pitch, George. Because I think our XG, I know we can't go off it all the time. I think it was actually your post I saw, George, on Twitter about how the fact that our XG is really low, but it also does kind of show the problems we're having with the likes of Kolo not necessarily firing, with Kudus now running into players because all the onus is on him to go and create something up top. I think that is definitely our biggest problem.
No, definitely. And I think, the tweet you were mentioning about was the fact that, and I agree with a lot of people, that when you're looking at XG for one game, it's kind of meaningless because it doesn't take in any consideration as to how the game was going, like the game state, or whether the team might have gone 1 or 2-0 up and then you're just sitting back, so then you're not going to want to create more chances. But in general, when you're looking at season wide, it's a brilliant indicator as to seeing how a team creates good chances across multiple games. And you just have to look back historically through Premier League season tables. It's not 1-for-1 perfect all the time, but the percentage is quite high in terms of the order of XG across a season usually defines what the position is in the table. There are some differences sometimes, like Everton would be higher than usual, even though their XG was low, but that's because their defence was so good, for example. So there are some anomalies, but more often than not, it's a good indicator. Is a team good at creating chances in good areas? There are some players that overperform their XG. Sonny historically overperformed his XG every year, but that just meant that he was a quality finisher and could finish hard chances. And at the moment, it's what, we're 17 games in. That's a pretty decent sample size for the season to know that when you're sitting, 17th in the XG table, that is really, really bad. That is showing that we are terrible at creating good chances, which is quite surprising because when you watch any interview with Frank, every single one of them, he's always reiterating, we need to get into these areas with high XG, these better chances, convert them, and this, that, and the other, which is what Brentford was so good at. They didn't have many chances, but when they did, it was really high quality, and they would score a lot of goals because of it. We've not seen any of that whatsoever with us. I think we were overperforming it massively at the start of the season, scoring a lot from corners. There was the odd Palinja shot from outside the box, which that's not sustainable across the season. So there were so many issues that a few people cottoned on to early on, which I wish I did at the time before getting too excited. But yeah, at the moment, it's not looking very good. And I think we're really struggling to create those chances. And I think it doesn't help not having Maddison, not having Kulusevski, not having Son, who will always score even from tougher areas. Even Solanke, even though people said he didn't have the best season last year, his contribution to goals in the build-up was so important. I think we are missing that. So I do sympathise with Frank to a certain extent, but we can't pretend like we didn't sign Xavi Simons for nearly 60 million, who's a Champions League level player, Mohamed Kudus, who is a quality player as well and probably is of Champions League level, and we brought in Kolo Muani on loan, who came from PSG and scored an insane amount of goals for Frankfurt before that and was part of France's first team during the World Cup not too long ago. So it's not like we don't have the players for it. I just feel like we're not platforming them well enough to be able to score from those opportunities.
No, and I think that's the most annoying thing for me because it took a while to see Xavi in the team. We finally get Xavi in the team, plays Rugal against Slavia Prague, and then just kind of non-existent. And again, I don't think that was his fault in this game. I don't know. I don't know what is going on with our attacking form.
I think there's different dynamics and ways people play, and it's getting used to that. And I think for a while it took a minute. I actually think Xavi and Richie play really well together, but Richie's so inconsistent. And then I actually thought Jed to Xavi was really good as well. This was when we were watching on last Tuesday, and it's just these little like moments where you go, oh, okay, they're finally clicking as to where people are on the pitch without even looking. But so many times we see Kudus with no one to aim for. We have Xavi sometimes looking up being like, I don't even know who to pass for. We don't have that danger player where you go, oh crap, like if they've got it, they're going to get a goal. In the past, it was like you could have two people on Harry Kane marking him at all times, and he would still consistently get the same number of goals. You just had to deliver enough times in like the space that he wanted. And then Sonny unlocked that, obviously, with their partnership for a while. I just think that's what we're lacking. I think Solanke could have been there. I think maybe it just was like just needed a little bit of time to get it there. I think the difference that makes a team spark even more is when you've got those special players like Kulu and Madders who unlock teams regardless, and they manage to get it to those spots. But again, like you can have those players all you like, but if there's not the goal scoring mindset, you're just not going to get those goals. You need the team goal then. And then like I can't help but think, I was like, I wonder where, because Johnson's not even getting a look in anymore on the team. And people have argued, oh, it's because he doesn't play Frank's style of football. But what is Frank's style of football? Brennan Johnson still, I think he's joint third top goal scorer I've got, with 2 goals, 3 across all competitions this season. But that's with him not playing. Like, how many minutes has the guy got? And he's still up there, just behind Van der Ven. Like, no team says that their centre back is their tactic to getting goals, especially when the Van der Ven type goal that we've seen. I just think that, like, as someone who's meant to be a tactical manager, like yesterday, you see Spence coming off, chucking his coat at the hour mark. I can't help but think you only do that when you're frustrated with stuff not working, not because I don't think it was his personal performance. I don't know. But even like players going down the tunnel against Frank's wishes to go and clap, like before I used to think that's really poor sportsmanship, but I can't help but think that if you applied and you didn't play very well personally, but the team made a good effort, or if they really fought on the pitch, or maybe they had a personally good performance, but if they don't believe in what they're doing, then they're not going to go around and clap when they're being booed because they don't believe in it too. So that's just why I can't help but think the mentality's just not there at the minute. I can't understand for the life of me why it isn't a tactic when you're 2-0 down to bring on someone like Brennan Johnson over Ben Davies, when you can have someone like Kudus who's hopefully can just aim at the back post and get Brennan to get a tap in. Like, if he's a tapping merchant and all he does is score goals but can't really do much else, then what is the problem with bringing in someone with good legs in the last 10 minutes of a game? Like, I just don't see how that would tactically be a bad thing. I can't see tactically how it's a good thing to bring on. No shade to Ben Davies, I love him, but I just don't see how that's going to get you 3 goals to win a game or get a point against Forest.
I also just didn't like Frank's reasoning for either. He said he brought them on because we didn't have stability. And he was like, oh, if we already had 4 up front, he was saying, so bringing on another attacker wouldn't work because then for this, that and the other. And I'm like, okay, so you're basically openly admitting we're conceding too many chances, so we need to bring on another defender 2-0 down for your stability. And I'm like, I feel like that's just such a terrible way to see the game. I feel like, for me personally, I think Cesc Fabregas was the one that said it in an interview not that long ago. As much as I don't like him for being one of the legends of the team down the road, what I love from his point of view and why his Como team are doing so well is that he said, if your team is constantly attacking and you're putting the pressure at the top of the pitch, you're far less likely to concede chances because the ball is as far away from the goal as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you start bringing on defensive players to see out a game, you're instantly inviting pressure and then you're going to concede more, which is what happened. I mean, it's just, we conceded the third and then it was game, set and match. There was just absolutely no way into it. And I feel, especially when, again, like no shade to Ben as well, because he served us well for the 10 years, but he's not an attacking left back. It's not like that was the issue. And the same with Palhinha. He doesn't offer you something in terms of on the ball of the way he's passing. He's just completely a brute force that's supposed to be amazing at tackling. You usually bring those sort of players on to see out a game and make sure that no one scores on the counter. And it just, those decisions were baffling. When I think Tell as well has had such a good impact off the bench the last, I think, 3 times now. There was the goal against United. He's set up the corner for against Newcastle. And then I think when he came on in another game, I can't remember which one it was, he looked really good, in my opinion. Again, same with Johnson, like the last 10 minutes. How is that going to impact when you're already 2-3-0 down at that point? And then I think we had another forward. I can't remember who it was. They ended up bringing on, but yeah, it just felt like the complete wrong decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing that wound me up as well. Because, like I say, Ben is a brilliant service to the club, etc., etc. But We were losing the game at this point anyway, Jess. So why have I seen him take foot on the pitch in the Premier League?
I just think, yeah, again, it's not. It kind of sends a message as well to the team, right? The team and to the opposition. If you put on a fresh pair of legs up front, you go, oh God, like we have to go and like sprint along with Brennan Johnson. Just it doesn't even matter if Frank doesn't like him and thinks he's not going to get results. The opposition are going to go, oh my God, they've got him on to score like these end goals. We absolutely cannot leave him alone. They just won't. You won't. It's like when you bring on Richie, like towards the end of a game, you go, oh my God, an absolute flipping pain. Like we're going to have to chase this man around, like regardless of whether he gets the ball or not. We're just not going to give him a chance. Like we can't afford it. But the message that you give by bringing on another defense is the defense aren't doing good enough. We're going to bring in someone that hasn't had minutes for a really long time, someone who doesn't make the first team in many teams. I don't know. I just, when people start saying our team just isn't good enough, but was Forest's team good enough? Like before we started playing, like on paper, like if you look at the players, they've got Gibbs White, but like I don't know, like anyone else, I would say like for like, I would back our team. But I just think what we're doing at the minute, it doesn't feel like anyone believes in it. I've written down that I wanted to talk about like the boos and what they mean, because I remember at the beginning of the season, I'm not someone who would go and boo like at a game. I personally like would feel really uncomfortable doing it. However, I've now really thought about it, and the people who are paying week in, week out, the message is that they're trying to communicate a desperate unhappiness at not only the performance, they're trying to communicate in person, in the flesh, this isn't good enough. And whilst I think it's disrespectful in some ways, like the only place that you'd ever boo loudly is probably like a pantomime, it has to be that bad for them to want to do it and be that rude to a team that they love, because ultimately, in the moment, it's not going to get the best out of your team. However, it's that bad that you need to communicate this because you're so frustrated.
No, I think that's what, because I think we've had lots of chats on the show about this before, and I think although it's difficult you don't want to ever boo your team, you don't ever want to boo a specific player, but George, there was a time, now get me wrong if I was wrong because I wasn't at the away game, but were there fans in the away end that were booing? Now, I know that everybody goes to home games, they pay a lot of money, but those fans that go week in, week out away to games as well and feeling that kind of disconnect, it kind of shows where we are at the moment. It does sound like it's horrific at the moment, and I kind of feel like it is, because something should be working and it's not.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I wasn't there at the game yesterday because I was over in Ireland for the weekend, so I can't speak specifically for that match. I think, to be fair, most other away games have been pretty good this year, so there's not really been a need for it. So I can only really speak on the home ones, and I think, yeah, as much as I don't agree with booing during the game, like the one where everyone was booing Vicario for every touch that he had. I think that was just that's disgraceful, because especially as the match is going on, when in history has booing a player mid-game ever improved them on the pitch? It just doesn't work. It's going to make them feel worse. It's just it sets up a bit more of disjoint between the fans and the players, this, that, and the other. But I do agree with what you're saying. At an end of a match, when you feel like you should be performing way better than this, and it's not like it's just a one-off. I think it's not. I don't think it's Spurs fans being spoiled in that, oh no, we didn't win our 6th game in a row, we're going to be really upset about this. It's stuff that we're seeing across multiple games for a long time that doesn't seem to be fixed. I think that's the big difference. And I think, like you say, if we're paying the extortionate amount that we're paying every year, I think fans are going to feel aggrieved by it. So I think luckily the away fans usually tend to show, I want to say, more support. I think because there's less of them there, there's probably not, you're not going to hear like this a roaring boo necessarily. But I think we just really, I think this goes back to what you said right at the beginning. You want to see something. You want to see something from your team that you're trying to progress. I can forego us losing to something. Look, we lose to Chelsea and Arsenal every year pretty much. I'm not that bothered. Obviously, you will be bothered at the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, you're not that bothered because it's something that's happened before. What really frustrates me is going into these derbies and looking like you're a League 2, League 1 side, thinking you shouldn't be there, and it's the attitude that was terrible. And then what's worse is then that happened against Fulham at home, a game that absolutely we should not be turning up thinking we shouldn't be winning this game. And same for Forest away, who got absolutely spanked 3-0 by Everton, the exact same team. Yet we're turning up acting as if we don't deserve to be there. I think that's where so much frustration is coming into the side at the moment. There's no belief at all in that we are the better team than the opposition against a few of them we should be. And then equally, even if you're not better than Chelsea and Arsenal, you still go into a London derby with absolute fight and give it everything. And if we don't win, we don't win. But at least the fans can see, oh, I like what you were trying to do there. Maybe we just don't have the players to do it. Maybe that's the issue. And then you can build on that going forward. But right now, for me personally, I thought we were doing it the last couple of games. But in hindsight, maybe it was just because they were poor opposition. Whereas now, when it comes to tougher teams, we just don't seem to be applying the same tactics and resorting to what has worked before for Frank and is just currently not working at Spurs.
I think that's the biggest thing as well, because obviously rumours have come out this evening that apparently Spurs are going to be backing Frank, which is fine, Jess, that's fine. But obviously everything we've spoken about tonight, and it's something that in the past, us as Spurs fans would be crying out for that, for us to back a manager. But I'm kind of stuck in two minds. And I don't know how you are, but obviously all we've spoken about tonight is obviously mistakes and maybe the tactics aren't quite there with Frank. I mean, for you, Jess, do you want him to have money in January, or would you rather stop this kind of project we're doing and get someone else in?
I just, you know what? Last season, I obviously wasn't happy with our form, but again, I was Anjin because I felt like I could see that the team were together. Right now, I'm finding it hard. Like, what are we backing here? And I really liked the idea of Frank. Like, I liked that he was everything on paper that and wasn't, like what everyone was calling for, like tactically adaptable, will like change things. But we're not seeing that. So it's not marrying up to the expectation, even if we're not getting the results. Like, I understand that managers wwho have had success, they don't like normally have it in their first 2 years. It's a long teething period, but I'm seeing it fall apart. I'm not seeing a growth. I'm not seeing any fight. I'm wondering how we get that back. Like, I don't really know what it means. Like, we lost Sonny and we lost obviously Kane like way before. And were we coasting off that? Because I don't know. Like, when Kane left, the team then gelled a bit more, I would say, as like a full, well-rounded team. And I feel like people stepped up. Whereas this time, it just kind of feels like it's very disjointed. And so when it's like that, it's hard to know what we're excited about, because I think we have players with potential. I don't think it is the players this time. Maybe it's an attitude from the players, but I think ability wise, we have something to work with. I do think we need someone who's better at scoring goals, but doesn't everyone?
No, it is true. And I think it's the first time I've kind of sat there and been like, don't really know where I sit with this. I mean, how are you feeling, George? Do you feel like, yep, give Frank what he wants in Jan, let him go and get the players that he wants, that he thinks he needs to reinforce this squad? Or is it like, not too sure?
To be honest, I'm hoping in a way it doesn't matter who the manager is if the club are doing what they should be doing in the background. Because when I look at a team like Brighton, for example, which I know everyone loves to use as their when it comes to this like data-led approach, what I really admire about them is that the club have set an ethos of how they want to play, the style they want to play, and they've got this incredible amount of access to the data because of their owner. And what they do is it's not just about the players, but the manager is part of that data, and they will always replace the next manager with someone that has a similar style, maybe some slight tweaks, but a very similar style. So in theory, it doesn't matter who the manager is that comes in, they should be able to work with those players, because those players should also fit that style and that ethos that they're trying to build. In the past, that hasn't really worked for us because like I said before, we've chopped and changed between being a counter-attacking team, a heavy possession team, and because we're going back and forth, maybe we have players that are hungover from the previous manager that don't necessarily play that way. Whereas I'd like to think that with this whole massive change we had in the summer, maybe we have now done that so that whatever player we can bring in January would work under Frank and will work on the next manager that we want to play that way. The problem is I don't think Frank is currently playing the supposed Spurs way that we want to see, which is worrying, because I really like the appointment after when it was announced in the summer, because again, just like Jess said there, like you thought, oh, okay, this is a guy that he played really good football with Brentford in the Championship to get them up. He then changed his style to be able to keep them there for a couple of years, and then he got them scoring a lot more goals last year. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's clearly a clever guy. He can step up and move to a more possession-heavy side, which we are compared to Brentford. But that hasn't translated on the pitch, and it's been 4 or 5 months now, which is the thing that's concerning me. And I worry if we do maybe bring in players to fit his counter-attacking style, that then won't work going in the future. And then if we do decide to bring in another possession-heavy, really front-footed attacking manager, then we're back to square one again. And the players doesn't fit the manager, and then it all sets it as a recipe for disaster. So for me, I think it's most important that the club is aligned on what they want. If we want to bring in attacking players, it almost shouldn't matter, and we should be bringing in top quality players, whether that's like a Semenyo, an Illiman and Dye, whoever it might be. But right now, Frank's not showing it for me that he can sort of play that way. And it would worry me if we bring in really specific players for his football in January and then just sack him. If things are continuing to be poor and then we sack him in February, we're basically just screwed for the rest of the season and we have to go again. That's the bit that worries me, is giving him that window. You sack him anyway because it's not getting better. And then we're just going to have to hope that things go okay for the rest of the year and you just write it off.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because normally I'll be like, yep, throw everything at the manager, get them all on board. And now it's weird. It is very, very weird. But obviously, before we hit that January transfer window, we have got Liverpool at home, Jess. And luckily for us, there's no game in the middle. So hopefully there'll be no swapping and changing with Frank's tactics. We'll actually see what the team are going to play like with no game in the middle. So how are you kind of feeling for this one, especially it being at home as well?
I think that Frank needs a result against them, whether it's getting a point or just making people happy with what they see on the pitch, because I think this is the problem. We're so up and down because we're not like, there's not something to fight for. So we were so up after the wins because we felt like it had like unlocked something. We're like, oh, finally some progress. And then it feels like you get dropped off a cliff and back to square one rather than just knocked back one peg. It doesn't feel like we're like climbing this ladder and we're going up in like a steady way. It feels like we're like getting to the top and then like being chucked all the way back down to the bottom. I was trying to think of an analogy, and this is not very well, it's not completely thought out, but the way I feel about managers is that I feel like, you know, your best friend's boyfriend, you just want them to make them happy. I don't have to work with them personally. I don't have to be with them personally or like love them personally, but I just need them to like make the players happy and do what they promise to do and like live up to like what they say. So if Frank's whole thing is meant to be tactics, I want to see tactics implemented and then the players like loving it too, like enjoying playing it. And if we watch that on the pitch and it, regardless of whether it works, we need to see that it's happening. Because again, like I said, in the first year or first season of a manager's tenure, they're not necessarily going to get amazing results. I think Andrew's quite lucky with that first year. But I think what we did see was all the players buy into it and they were happy with what they were playing and people were happy with what they were seeing. And it was like living up to the hype. And then I think, again, the reason why the end of that season completed it is because Ange threw in the towel. Sorry, I know I keep talking about him, but he threw in the Premier League in favour of winning something because that's what he said he was going to do. And I think it's that faith and that trust in someone. And the players obviously had that. Like, I mean, we all saw it at the parade. They all had that as well. I think with Frank, he's not completely won everyone over yet. He's like, I don't know, he's nice and he says the right things and he's professional, but I'm finding it really hard to be inspired by what he's trying to instill. And I'm wondering if the players have that same, like, I don't know, feeling. So what I would like to see from the Liverpool game is tactics that like make sense and more of a gelling on the pitch. Like I hope in training that they learn to like work with each other within the lines. Like there's too many times where Kudus has looked up and he's either held on to the ball too long because he thinks he can get it around someone, but maybe that's because the option's not there or he doesn't trust who's going to be there. Like I don't know. I think we have players that are exciting. I think Frank needs to unlock what it is that's motivating them.
Spot on. I think so as well. I think we've seen it far too many times this season. And again, I think we just want to see something against Liverpool. Obviously, they're sixth at the minute. You see, I've done my homework for once. Beat, what have I got? Drew to Leeds, drew to Sunderland, and beat West Ham 2-0 recently. So with that kind of in hand, George, I'm not they're not having the best of time this season. How are you feeling going into this one?
You know, it's really quite. As much as it seems like I'm all doom and gloom this episode, I try not to be, but obviously things have just not looked great recently. I weirdly think we're going to do really well against Liverpool. And that's mainly because any time I've watched Liverpool this season, just in terms of their defence alone, it reminds me so much of Angeball. They're committing a lot of their fullbacks forward and they don't have that many options for rotation. It's literally just, pretty much just Konate and Van Dijk for centre-back. Gomez has had to play right back, hasn't played that much. Kirkes hasn't had the best start and Robertson's not really been playing, and then they've had Frimpong injured, Bradley injured. They've conceded so many chances by committing a lot of their fullbacks forward or just the way they're playing, which I think really actually would suit what Frank does. And I think, like you're saying there, I think he's going to have a point to prove as well in this game. So I'd like to think the players would be up for it too. So I've just got a strange feeling that we're actually going to have a really good game. But again, just said it there, it's just so up and down. It can be really good 1 minute, and then who have we got after, like Palace afterwards? I think we've probably it will just go downhill again. And like it's finding that consistency has just been so difficult. And I think as much as, you know, Salah's not had a great season either, him not being there at all, could that help us? I mean, they're going to be forced to have to only play their, I say forced, only their £150 million forward. And the 80 million other pound forward and the 150 million pound midfielder. Maybe I might rethink it. No, on a real though, I think they will probably set up in a way that I think will suit us. They'll press us high, they'll leave space in behind, and that suits Frank to a T. Which is why it's worked in some of these big games like at Man City, and why we looked good against PSG, even though the result didn't go away. But at the end of the day, Tottenham's Tottenham. You just don't know what team's going to turn up and what mood. I thought we were going to turn up against Forest because we're just such a good team away from home. That went to shambles.
Maybe we've swapped our form. Maybe it's swapped away and home. To be fair, I would prefer that.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have 60,000 fans happy in the stadium every week and then work on the. I think I agree with you there. Actually, that would be much better. If that starts this week, happy days. But I think I'm just in a position now where I just want the same as you guys. I just want to see something I can really get behind and excite me. And even if the result isn't there, but I can see that happening on the pitch, I will be more than happy.
Fingers crossed that something happens at the weekend. And I think that's the thing. We've always done this as Spurs fans. You never know what you're going to get. And I think that's the most frustrating thing at the moment. Hopefully that will change soon. And hopefully when we come back and do the show next week, we'll have a win to talk about. Because even though I hate losing, it was actually really nice tonight to speak to both of you to kind of dissect what exactly went wrong and try and look ahead and be a little bit a positive for what's to come. But I want to say a big thank you. We'll go around the table and say our goodbyes. So Jess, thank you once again for joining us tonight. Where can everybody do your thing?
So I don't really talk sport most of the time. Actually, this is the first podcast I've done in ages. So Hollie, thanks for getting me out of hiding. But I actually present BBC Introducing on Radio 1 and in London. So I'm on BBC London on a Saturday night, 8 till 10, Sundays 11 p.m. on Radio 1 and various other things as well. But also I DJ for the Spurs women's games. So if anyone has tickets to the next one, I'll see you there.
Bosh. No, thank you very much, Jess. It's been good fun tonight. And George, amazing once again. Where can everybody find you doing your thing too?
Oh, well, thanks for having me back on. It's annoying because I try to be as positive as possible, but when games like that happen, it's just so demoralising. And sometimes I don't even know if I'm speaking sense or anything, but it is just nice to be able to chat to other fans and just kind of voice and just there's just something about saying something out loud just feels so much better than just holding it all in. So thank you for allowing me to do that today. And yeah, it's pretty much just Georgia Killy across all platforms. It's been quite an inconsistent year on the YouTube just because working full time and life getting in the way makes it difficult. But I'm still trying to do the nice cinematics on match days as much as I can when I'm there, which Liverpool will hopefully be the next one. So yeah, thanks for having me back on.
No, thank you guys. And like I say, thank you to everybody that's been in the chat tonight. You know, I can't do two things at once. So I have seen your messages when you put them in. And thank you to everybody that's rewatching this now. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe button, all that good stuff. And make sure you go follow these two as well. And I guess that kind of leaves us to say, hopefully next Monday we'll have a win to talk about, or something that's a little bit more that we can go, yep, I can kind of see the vision now. But I guess until next time, come on, you Spurs.